Hi, this is Dr. Victoria Nalule, a research fellow at the Extractive Hub, which is based at the Center for Energy, Petroleum, Mineral and Policy at the University of Dundee. Here with me is my sister, Ms. Wairimu Karanja from Kenya. And I'm so happy to host her because she'll be taking us through revenue sharing and governance in the extractive sector. And thereafter, she will take us through revenue transparency and accountability still in the extractive sector in Kenya. But before we start, I would like Ms. Wairimu to briefly introduce herself.
Thank you for that introduction, Victoria. I'm very happy to be here. I've been following your videos and podcasts, and I must congratulate you on all that you've been doing, not only for this, but also at AEMI. That's a great initiative. My name is Wairimu Karanja. I'm a director at Wairimu & Company, or W&Co, which is a law and policy consultancy that is based in Nairobi, Kenya, advising on East Africa matters. And I am also an alumni of CEP MLP, studied energy law and policy. So I'll be taking you and the viewers through energy, through revenue sharing and revenue allocation policies in Kenya, and also through revenue transparency, what we have seen in the past and what we aim to see for the future. So Victoria, Kenya is a relatively young country when it comes to exploitation of its natural resources on a commercial scale. We have both oil and gas potential, definitely oil reserves, and we have mining reserves, mineral reserves and mining potential. In terms of oil and gas, we are definitely not Uganda. We have 750 million barrels of oil reserves, and we've got gas potential on the coast. Our oil reserves are up in Turkana in the north of Kenya, and we've got gas potential off the Indian Ocean, and we also have mineral reserves, rare earths, titanium, gold, diamonds, and so there's a lot that can be done. Now, when it comes to revenue sharing, the cornerstone really stems from the Constitution. We have a Constitution of 2010 that provides that minerals are vested in the government, vested in the people under the stewardship of the government, and that natural resource contracts need to go through parliamentary ratification. Now, we have relatively new laws when it comes to extractives. We had old laws that were based on colonial legislation, but those laws were then amended, and in 2016 we got a Mining Act that provides that for mining revenues they would be shared as between, we have a national government, county governments that are like federal states, and then we have the communities. So the national government is meant to have a share of 70%, and then county governments 20%, and then 10% goes to the communities. That is on mining. Now in petroleum, we have the national government having a 75% share, counties having a 20% share, and communities having a 5% share. And the question that has been going on in people's minds is, or that has been at the talk in the national stage, is the revenue sharing equitable? When we say counties get 20%, what about Turkana County, where the oil is coming from? Should they be entitled to the 20% or something more? When the government gets, the national government gets 75% of petroleum revenues, how does that trickle down? When it comes to communities, and we say that we are giving 5% of petroleum revenues to communities and 10% of mining revenues to communities, how are you getting the money to the communities? Is there going to be a trust? Is there going to be actual cash money being given to members of the community? Who is the community? Who are the stewards of the community percentages? And so there's been a lot of discussion both from the government entities and civil societies as to how that is going to be done. There are more bills that have come into play So in the petrol, we have, like I said, the Petroleum Act of 2019, the Mining Act of 2016, and now we've got bills. We've got a sovereign wealth fund bill, and right now the question that that's being asked even around civil society and around lawyers and community representatives is, do we want a sovereign wealth fund? How will a sovereign wealth fund help the country that is in need of development funding? And we're looking at a 10 to 15 year timeline for taking the oil out and selling it. We've got a county allocation of revenue bill, we've got a division of revenue bill, we've got a natural resources benefit sharing bill. And how are they going to play into each other? So there's going to be a lot of interest, and we see a lot of interest, especially because of the Constitution. Because as citizens, we are entitled to information from the government, we're entitled to public participation. So it's going to be interesting in the next year or so to see how the public participation is going to come in terms of determining really the correct procedures to follow in revenue sharing. And this is where I particularly see a lot of technical assistance required, especially from the Extractives Hub and partners like the ALSF who've been working with the government, the AFDB, World Bank, and for the Extractives Hub is really coming and sharing from experiences in other countries on how revenue sharing can be dealt with quite well and can be, used for the benefit of the country and achieving, all the sustainable development goals under our commitments to the United Nations. So that is going to be interesting. Now, another interesting aspect that I see in terms of technical assistance is our revenue transparency. Now, contracts are not publicized. They are meant to be ratified by Parliament, but you don't get to see the contract. You don't get to see the production sharing contract. You don't get to see the mining concession. And that has been a bone of contention in terms of the constitutional safeguards that citizens have a right to getting information from the government. Now, Kenya is not a signatory to the Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, or EITI. One of the big mining companies that's operating in Kenya, Base Titanium, is a supporter of the EITI. Now, transparency is more required as to me, an issue of governance, because once people know a little bit about what's going on, they then get to trust the government and they get to trust the investors a bit more. Not that they are really chasing after the money. It's really an issue of governance and trust. And I see potential for technical assistance in having strategies and having policies on how revenue transparency is going to be handled in the country. The government has tried, and very commendably, in having transparency objectives and initiatives. We had an open government initiative where there was a public disclosure portal for government contracts. Several contracts were disclosed. There needs to be management of how the portal is going to be run. And I think that is another area for technical assistance for the Extractives Hub in terms of building from experiences in other countries where the hub has provided technical assistance and seeing how these two main issues of revenue sharing, revenue allocation of resources, and number two, the transparency aspects and the public participation aspects can be dealt with so that there can be more legitimacy, I think, when it comes to management of natural resources in Kenya. And the future is very bright. The future is very, very bright. There just needs to be that governance, that step forward in governance.
Thank you very much, Ms. Wairimu. You've really raised very important issues, especially with respect to transparency and accountability. I'm a strong supporter and promoter of transparency in African countries because I believe that's the only way we can benefit from our resources. Like, people should know how much revenue do they get from their oil resources or mining resources, how the revenue is being used, and they should have access to contracts, because in that way, different experts like yourself can be able to review and even comment on these contracts before they are actually signed. Thank you very much. I think we shall stop there for now. But for those who would like more information about the extractive sector in Kenya, please do not hesitate to contact Wairimu. We shall be displaying her contact details. Feel free to ask her any questions with respect to energy mining. And she's also a lawyer. She's running her own company. So yes, you're definitely in good hands. And do not forget to subscribe to the Extractive Hub YouTube channel. Check out our website and also podcast. We shall be bringing you more experts from different countries. Thank you very much, Wairimu.
Thank you.